Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Backlogged Gamer. I'm your host, Kyle. Joined with me is my co host, Joe. Joe, how's it going?
Hey, hey, good man. How about you?
I can't complain too much. The weather's been nice recently. It's been cooling down, nice breeze. So,
It's finally fall.
yeah, seriously, it's
We,
a lot nicer.
Summer straight into what, August? We're in Cleveland here, and it was like 90 halfway through August,
Yeah.
or October.
No, it was the same down here. It was the same down here. It was not fun at all. I mean, I grew up in Florida, but I mean, I'm not a crazy big fan of like the heat that you get in Kentucky, and I guess you get a similar heat in Ohio as well. But
Yeah,
definitely
and I
not a
lived in
fan.
Florida for 10 years, so that's not really heat. Florida had two temperatures, and it was like hot and then hell. So there was really no. I mean, I was wearing shorts every Christmas, so we got 10 years of that, and that was enough. So we're done.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, all right. So what have you been up to this week, man? What have you been doing?
I'm exhausted. It's for those of you out there that don't really know, I am a teacher, and it's just been crazy. It's been like homecoming week, and it's just been one thing after another. So we had like the Powder Puff football games. I don't know if you remember all this stuff from high school or whatever. We have to put on the fall festival, and they tried to get me in the dunk tank, and it was 50 degrees outside, and I was like, no, not today, absolutely not. So it's just been one thing after another, but man, I gotta tell you today, we went. I gotta tell you a quick story. When's the last time you were at TGI Fridays?
Oh my God, that oh my! Of all the restaurants you brought up, it had to be freaking TGI Fridays. I have not set foot in a TGI Fridays in like 2 to 3 years,
Probably
probably.
better that way.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm intrigued
Okay,
now. You gotta break it down,
okay.
man. Break it
So
down.
my wife was emptying out our purse the other day, and we came across a stash of gift cards we didn't even know we had. We had one for like Olive Garden and Outback, and there was a TGI Fridays one in there. And we're like, is there even any money on this? And I said, well, let's we're gonna be by the only one in town on Wednesdays, so let's go check it out. So we go in there. We haven't been in this one ever, and immediately we're hit with the realization that there are more bugs in the restaurant than there are people, including staff, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know who gave us this gift card, but if I ever find out who it is, I'm never talking to them again. I I used to work in a restaurant, so I can tend to be really critical, but I'm also very understanding. We stood up. I came in and I said, I'm gonna go use the restroom. I went to use the restroom, came back out. My wife was still standing there. She had read through the menu. She had already decided her dinner, and still no one had come up to greet us or anything. And there's someone at the bar, and there's someone walking around the tables in front of us. And I really it's amazing to me how long people can go in a professional atmosphere without intentionally making eye contact with you. And there was clearly something going on. I don't know if they had like 50 people calling or something, but I actually went up to the bartender and I said, "Hey, should we wait to get a seat, or is somebody going to seat us?" And she's like, "Oh," and she's very nice. She said, "Okay, we'll come seat you." So they came and they sat us. And the sad thing is, the food was actually good, but the place was a pigsty. And I kid you not, dude, we sat there and it became like in meal entertainment to see how much of a dumpster fire the operation of this place was, because we saw a group of like 20 people come in. They were excited, like, "Ah, TGI Fridays, oh, it's like a family gathering or something." They stood up there for 15 minutes and then realized no one was going to come seat them, so they just left. And this kept happening over and over and over again. And in the time we sat there, which was maybe an hour, there had to be 30 or 35 people that came in, never were talked to, and just walked right back out the door. And the amount of money that this place lost tonight was just hilariously staggering. But the sad thing is the people were nice and the food were actually good. But we're never going there again. We had like $10 left on our gift card, and we just left it on the table. We're like, just take it. It's the best tip you've ever gotten. So we don't want it. We're done. So yeah, TGI Fridays, never going back there. We're clearly not sponsored
Yeah,
by
that,
TGI
like seriously,
Fridays, so-
episode 1 of the podcast. What are we gonna start with, Joe? Scathing review of TGI Fridays, please.
We talk the listeners are listening right now like, okay, this is a video game podcast and they're starting out talking about the weather and restaurant reviews. What is going on?
Okay, well, I'm just gonna segue right in. It's okay. So how long have you spent in like a Red Lobster recently, ladies and gentlemen? Now I'm kidding.
I was going
I'm
to
not
say,
go there.
please, not another restaurant review.
I've on one hand I was thinking like, how long can I keep this up? And on the other hand I was like, I'm gonna make this joke
Red
quick so
Lobster's
we can
still
move
around
on.
though? Seriously?
Oh yeah, yeah. We got one in Lexington. We got one in Richmond. We got one around. I maybe it's just Kentucky people are like, this is the only place we can get seafood.
Well,
we're landlocked.
We'll only go if we get a gift card. I'm just kidding. We're
Oh
not that bad.
yeah, there you go. But I've been this week I've been kind of. I haven't been playing like no games. I've just playing not really any complicated games. I've been playing like Bloons Tower Defense and an RTS called Star Wars Empire at War, and I've just been trying to catch up on like some anime and stuff. And I'm really just waiting for Trails of Cold Steel 3 to come out, because once that game comes out, it comes out on the 22nd, I believe. I'm gonna be playing through that nonstop, day after day, and then I'm going to jump right into Three Houses, which I haven't played yet. I've heard good things about it from Fire Emblem fans, from non-Fire Emblem fans. So I'm excited to try it. I don't know how it's going to be. I've actually stayed away from spoilers all this time, and I am super happy about that. People have not spoiled.
Are you a
it for
no
me,
spoilers
so.
person, or do you like watch everything that?
No. I am hardcore against spoilers. I'll watch like a teaser trailer and maybe like the first main trailer that comes out after the teaser. Right. But for the most part, I stay away, mostly because I don't want my perceptions to be painted by certain things. I mean, you can cut a trailer to look like it's all kinds of things. It's not. I mean, there was a movie that came out a couple years ago called It Comes at Night, and A24, I don't know who they got to cut that trailer, but the way they cut that trailer, it looked like it was some sort of like high-octane horror thriller, and it's really just like a slow burn about people being miserable in a house, and it's about like paranoia and like fear of the other and all this other stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is not an action-packed romp, guys. Like, who the hell cut that trailer?
Yeah, and even more in the gaming sphere, we have to be more careful with that, with like vertical slices at E3 and stuff like that, because. You know, my biggest thing is I think of like the vertical slice they did with BioShock Infinite at the E3. They first showed that sequence is like nowhere in the game. Like there's similar sequences, but that exact sequence is nowhere in the game. And that ended up luckily being the way it played and stuff. But yeah, you especially in gaming, you've got to be really careful with that. The biggest movie, the most criminal use of that in the movies that I can think of recent memory is the movie Downsizing. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's the TGI Fridays of movies. Don't ever watch that movie. It's horrible. It's nothing like the trailer that was cut. The trailer made it actually look like it was a very interesting plot, and it had absolutely nothing to do with what it looked like it had to do with in the trailer.
I actually know the director. I actually follow that director. The director's name is Alexander Payne, and the reason for that, by the way, the reason the trailer was cut in such a way is because Alexander Payne movies are like the easiest movies to cut to make them look like interesting and quirky and all these things that they may or may not be. So, yeah, like you could have fallen asleep at the editing table and cut a trailer that made it seem interesting. Alexander,
that's like Zack Snyder films. That man can cut a trailer. Like even Sucker Punch looked somewhat tolerable, but then you actually go see the movie and it's like, oh no. So
that's one of the things that concerns me about Fallen Order and like Skull and Bones and like these like big games that come out that are coming out, and I'm so numb. I'm just so uninterested in like 85 to 90% of what the AAA kind of publishers are putting out and kind of forcing. Yeah, I'm just chronically uninterested because
really
it's the cycle that happens like every E3. CG trailers come out, gamers cream their pants, and they freak out on Twitter and on Facebook and Reddit. They're all screaming at each other, "Oh God, we're so excited! It's gonna be so good!" And then the gameplay comes out, and then it's like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting. This is cool." And it's a vertical slice because, of course, it fucking is. and it doesn't show too much, and it's kind of vague. And then the next vertical slice comes out the following year at probably E3 or Gamescom or some shit, and it's doesn't look nearly as good because they completely downgraded it and they capped the frame rate and they did all this other shit. And it's like,
Well,
every time.
you run into this problem more than I think console gamers, because for those of us, or for those of the audience that are listening, we're still getting to know each other, our taste, our gaming habits, and stuff like that. But for those of you that don't know, you're a big PC gamer.
Yes.
And
yes.
I am strictly consoles. If I don't have to touch a PC outside of work, it's the happiest day of my life. But it's funny because I'm assuming all those games that you said you were playing and you were waiting for, they're all RPGs, or are the RTSs?
Some of them, yeah.
I'm not big into RPGs or RTSs. I am a big AAA, fingers crossed, boy, I hope this is as good as it looks, kind of cautious gamer. For example, I won't buy a AAA game the day it comes out. I very rarely will do that. Simply because, like, a game like Control we're looking at now, who apparently that game is bombing financially, even though it's getting good critical reviews, within a week or two it's $37 on Amazon, brand new. So, you know, I am a cautiously optimistic AAA gamer, and if a game gets a really good review, great, I will get to it when I get to it. I have a rule now that until I'm ready to play the game, I don't purchase it, because chances are it's going to be cheaper than if I would have bought it at $60, let it sit on the shelf in plastic wrap, and then I get to it 6 months later when it's $20 in Best Buy. So that's kind of my rule. But it's cool because we have a very differing opinions and differing tastes on gaming. But I think that's going to lead for some interesting.
I mean, honestly, part of me was thinking we should have just not used the name Backlogged Gamer, and we should have named the podcast Younger Millennial Bitches About Gaming Culture, while the homely dad character listens. The podcast.
That would fit in iTunes, though. But.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like that would be appropriate.
Just to clarify, though, I'm not a dad.
Okay.
No kids on this end.
Well, you're okay. So. Well, you're a lot older than me, so you're still the dad-like character.
Exactly. And if you count the kids that I teach at school, then I have 400 kids.
There you go.
So there's that.
There you go.
If
father figure, that's your job.
If you ever hear me say the kids or kids, I'm talking about my school kids. So.
Yeah. But it's weird though. Like when it comes to AAA games, I'm only interested if it's if it's CD Projekt Red. I'm gonna be like, okay, that's interesting.
I am too.
I'm just interested to see what they do in general. So Cyberpunk 2077 was a pre-order just because I wanted to grab it, because I just wanted to play it. And Death Stranding was a pre-order not necessarily because I knew I was going to love the game. I was just very interested in how that game came to be and why it existed, and I just kind of wanted to support that because I think Kojima is an interesting man. Yeah. He's like a rare man. He's a very rare person. He's a very unique person in gaming. He's an auteur. And in film, you have a lot of auteurs in the indie movie scene, like A24 and Fox Searchlight.
Tarantino.
Tarantino's like an auteur, yeah. But I can think of two auteurs in gaming: Yoko Taro and Kojima. Like that's it. And I feel like duty bound on some level to support an auteur who's genuinely interesting. I guess 2to51 is like
those are the only people that you think of as auteurs in the history of gaming. Like that's it. Those two people.
Yeah. That's about it. Because I mean, you can't make one really good indie game and call yourself an auteur. Like the guys at Cuphead, they're not auteurs. Like you have, there's like more to it than just making one really good, interesting game. In the same way that you can't be on a tour for just making one good, interesting movie that has like an interesting style to it. Like that's not how that works.
Right.
But so yeah, like in video gaming, I can only think of like a few people that have a definite like style, and they have a genuine like heart and emotion behind the games that they make, that has a very specific atmosphere to it, so that you know you're playing a Kojima game. Like you're not going to boot up Metal Gear 3 and be like, man, I wonder who made this game. It's like, no, it is a Kojima game. You know what I mean?
So I know I'm the older dad gamer, but you wouldn't even consider someone like Miyamoto an auteur I can't say that word for some reason. I mean, creator of something as seminal as Mario Brothers, and he did Zelda too, right? So
No, and the reason that I'm saying no is because he is more on the gameplay side of things, almost exclusively.
okay, I see what you're saying. Not the story side.
Kojima is a game designer and a storyteller and like a director. He's all those things.
Gotcha.
He is not just someone who makes really good like gameplay. Like he's a genius. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh man, the guy who made Mario isn't shit. I'm just saying that when you're talking about like a genuine auteur, I don't think he necessarily fits the definition. But I'm free to have people disagree with me. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people to disagree with that. But in my personal view of what kind of an auteur is, I don't think he quite fits. But
Get ready for the firestorm of rain and hate.
yeah. I essentially just called like Jesus. Like he was okay. Jesus was all right. Yeah, that's gonna go over real well.
We had 5 listeners and we lost 4 of them. Just now, within the first 10 minutes. No, like I totally get that. Now, I don't know how coherent a story has to be for you to consider them an auteur, but I would not put Kojima on that list. I played the first. I respect the man, and I'm kidding. I think he is definitely, he can be considered that. But I remember I played like 5 minutes of Metal Gear Solid 2 on PS2 back in the day and didn't get into it. And then the only other Metal Gear game I've played was 5, MSG 5, because it was free on PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Plus, and I think I was somewhat inebriated that night, maybe. And that was probably not the best of ideas to start a Kojima game like that. And I remember sitting down and I'm like, I'm going to play this video game. I held the controller in my hand for over an hour. And through very many cutscenes of people riding with swords on horses and whales on fire coming out of a hospital that I was just in, I sat there, and when the first gameplay opened up after I was now in a desert, spoilers for the beginning of Metal Gear if any of that actually makes sense to anyone, I sat there, and as soon as I realized I was actually in control of the game, I paused it and I was just like, what the crap just happened? And I could not understand a bit of it. And I honestly gave it a shot. I tried another hour to get into the game and stuff, and I actually like stealth games. Like the Dishonored series is one of my favorite series, like ever. It's up there with BioShock, which I'm sure we'll talk about at one point in time.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about BioShock.
But man, I could not get into that game, and story was a big reason I could not get into it. My love of video games came from my love of movies. I know we'll probably get into, kind of how we got into gaming or what our gaming origins are at one point in time. But I guess I'm a weird movie watcher. Me and my wife are very easy to please. We like popcorn flicks. We like movies that are full of action and just plain fun. It doesn't have to depress the heck out of us in order for us to think it's a masterpiece. It can simply just be a fun movie. For example, one of my favorite movies of this year so far has been Alita: Battle Angel, that nobody went to go see, and it was just fun. It was a fun movie. You get over the weird eyes in like the first 5 minutes, and I just had a blast watching it. But I also like the deeper meaning stuff like that. But my love of video games kind of segues and comes from my love of movies and the fact, of course, that I grew up playing video games before they even had stories in them, for the most part. So I don't know. I see both ends of it.
I'm actually, the more that we're sort of like kind of figuring out where the other's coming from, the more I'm like really excited to continue with this.
You don't want to podcast with me
anymore. No, quite the opposite actually. No, you're completely right. It's interesting. Like you're a console gamer, bigger release guy. I'm primarily PC gamer, and even our movie taste, I'm starting to feel like, is very much diametrically opposed.
Oh, good.
Because I'm going to be like, smaller scale, indie movies, drama, thriller kind of stuff, and you're talking more action, which is interesting. I didn't even see Battle Angel because I was chronically uninterested. I was just like, whatever, bro.
Oh man.
Take that live action anime, not anime shit somewhere else while I go watch anime. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I had a lot of people who watched it that said, "Holy crap, this was actually good," and like reviews on the internet were like, "This is the best manga adaptation into live action that's existed so far." So I'm not even into that stuff. I mean, you've got me watching this. What is this nonsense you told me to watch?
Oh, okay. I had you rent The Disastrous Life of Psyche
Yes,
K.
that's right. Yeah. So
I've got a feeling you're actually gonna really like it. You might either like kind of like it or really like it. I doubt you'll hate it because the comedy is super quick and it's punchy, and they don't ever take a crazy amount of time to tell a joke. And the way they've set things up is actually like very like well structured. So I think you'll end up really liking it.
It's funny because I run a nerd. There's a few things I run at my school. I run the esports team, and I run a nerd club. We call it Nerd Alert. And one of the things we do there is like a nerdy book club type thing. So we have each one of the students fill out a slip of paper when they come in to the club for the first time. And they have 4 categories, and they list them in order of importance to them, so 1 to 4, 1 being the most important, and then they list what their favorite movie is, what their favorite video game is, their favorite graphic novel or comic book, and their favorite, what did I say, movie, video game, comic book, TV show. TV show is the last one. So whenever one of their names, we pull a person at random every week. And what we'll do is all of us in the group will take the most accessible or their favorite thing and try to digest that in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's a game, they'll rent the game from GameFly or the local library or something like that, or if they have it, they'll borrow it from a friend. TV show, same thing. They'll watch it on Netflix or, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And they'll at least give it an hour or two. So the last thing we had to do, one of our students' favorite thing that he wanted everyone to watch was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh, solid choice.
Yeah, he specifically said Brotherhood and not the original one. So I gave it a shot, just like I told everyone else. I said, even if we hate this, and it's kind of like the basis of our podcast, actually, even if we hate this or we don't agree with it, you can still talk about how much you hate it. And I'm trying to get these kids open to the idea of, listen, you can completely disagree with someone and still get along with them and still, appreciate their art form, even though it's not something that you jive with. So I watched this Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I told him in advance I'm not a fan of anime. And I was not a big fan of this. It's one of the better ones I've seen. But the thing that trips me up with anime is the humor, I guess, which is why I'm interested in what you're trying to sell me on. Because it's mainly about humor, it sounds like. And the humor trips me up because the thing that I don't get and drives me crazy with the humor is not necessarily the humor or trying to be funny. It's not actually funny. Is like, I guess the best way I can explain it is like the emotes.
Oh yeah,
that come with the humor on the animation side of things, I think are stupid as all get out. And like, so for example, like, the little tear thing, or when a symbol pops up above their head, it's like it changes from a animation into like a graphic novel almost, or a manga. And I'm like, okay, pick which one you want to be. Why does their face change and all of a sudden their nose disappears and their eyes go white? I don't understand that. It looks dumb to me, and I don't understand it. And this had very little of it, and I appreciate anime. I think it's some of the most beautiful animation in the world, and you cannot find a better action scene than a Japanese anime. But man, that humor just drives me crazy to the point where I can't stand most of them. So I'm very interested to see where your show takes me and how I sit on that, because I know you said it's hilarious.
Yeah, the reason you'll probably like it is that the majority of it is dialogue focused. So a lot of the jokes come in through like scenarios and dialogue. Like it's very, very little slapstick. And the slapstick that happens again is like really fast, because the thing I like about the show again is the fact that they don't take a long time to tell a joke. They set it up and then deliver the punchline and then move on. And so there are. It's essentially like I wouldn't say it's a skit show, but the episodes are broken up into smaller segments. So nothing ever goes longer than like 6-ish minutes, and so there's usually like 3 segments in each episode. So that's why I think the comedy might be more.
Let me. I will keep you posted, and I'll keep the people listening posted on what I think about that. But let me tell you what I've been playing, if that's okay, because I feel like if I don't talk about video games soon, we're gonna lose our last listener.
Okay.
So I just got done playing Red Dead. And this is why the show is called The Backlogged Gamer, because that game came out last February this year? Was it February this year? Okay.
Yeah,
so I mean, I know this just got announced that it's coming out on PC in November, so maybe you can play it then. But I started playing it back in February. I planned on finishing it in the summer. Didn't get around to it. Just finished it. Man, that game is long. It's like good long. It's a really good game. And it's an outstanding game, and I think it's one of those masterpieces that don't really exist anywhere. It's kind of like a really good Oscar movie. It's kind of slow and boring at times, but it's good, and if you stay through to the end, it's just totally worth it. And when I play a game, I'm very much OCD. I'm very much the kind of person that will not move the story forward until I've done all of the side missions that popped up in between the last time I did a story mission and the next time I have a story mission. So I played like every square inch of that game. And man, what a masterpiece of a game. It really is good. Ironically, I liked the first one better. And maybe that's just because I'm in a different place in my life where I have less time to play games. But coming off of such a heavy thing like that, I'm kind of just screwing around, to be completely honest. I have a few. I'm a trophy hunter to a certain extent, a very minimal extent. And when I finished playing Horizon Zero Dawn, because of that OCD nature, I had like 86% of the trophies or something like that. So I went back and I platinumed that. I'm trying to platinum Astrobot. I'm a big VR guy, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the future as well.
Sure.
I love VR. I think VR is awesome. My wife is like a Beat Saber master. I'm actually usually fighting her now for the PlayStation because she plays Beat Saber like 2 hours a night. It's like her workout. And she's actually, as of now, as of this week, in the top 10. She's actually number 4 in one song in what I'm assuming is the leaderboards of the world, or at least this country, for Beat Saber on expert mode, which is unreal, which is absolutely unreal. So I don't really know how she moves as fast as she does, but she's getting super into that. So I'm trying to platinum Astrobot. I haven't finished it yet. I'm on like the final boss. And then I'm also trying to platinum Batman Telltale series. Again, now the one we got with PlayStation Plus for free. Those are pretty simple. You just finish it and you get a platinum. So I know it's a little cheesy and a little easy, but I'm doing all of that before I move on to my next big game for me, which is going to be Just Cause 4. Before I start that, I want to finish all that other little stuff. And when my wife is playing Beat Saber, I'm also just screwing around on Far Cry 5. So I've tried to start Far Cry. I played every Far Cry game since 3, and I've tried to start Far Cry 5 a few times now, and I haven't been into it. I have to feel like playing a game. I don't know if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But like, I have to be into it. Sometimes I won't be into a game, and I'll put it away, and I'll come back to it, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is perfect timing. And it can work in the opposite direction too. I'll feel like a game when I try, a snippet of it or a demo or something, even if if those don't exist anymore. But and then I'll buy it and I'll like, man, why do I want to play this? I don't want to play this anymore. So I just didn't feel like Far Cry 5 the first couple times I played it. And I started it on PlayStation before my wife got obsessed with Beat Saber. So I actually got it for my Xbox. So now I can play it on Xbox while my wife's playing Beat Saber, and I'm having a grand old time grinding up cows and cultists in tractors and all kinds of crazy stuff. When you think about it, it's kind of like Just Cause in first person. So I don't know if you've ever played any of those Far Cry games.
I played 3 and 4. I haven't even touched 5. I really liked 3. I thought 3 had a couple of massive issues. Spoiler alert for Far Cry 3, for anybody that cares. Yes. Killing Voss when they did was a terrible fucking idea. I thought that was just the dumbest idea. He should have been the final boss. I think
It was
having
like three-quarters of the way through the game.
yeah,
or
but
something,
that was
wasn't it?
that
While
was
you were on,
way
like,
too
an
soon
acid trip?
because here's the thing. He's very well like acted. Like his actor really put a lot into that role, and his dialogue is interesting, and he's a way more interesting villain because of his inherent like chaotic nature. And then they replace this interesting like native like pirate islander like charismatic like villain with generic white guy drug dealer, and I'm just like, okay, well now my interest in this game is fucking plummeted. I thought that was just a massive misstep, but
Wait a minute. Are you talking about 3, or are you talking about the transition from 3 to 4?
I'm talking about 3.
Who did it turn into after Voss? I thought it went to his sister.
Exactly. See, he was so boring you don't even fucking remember him.
I
That's how
remember
boring
him,
he
and then
was.
I remember his sister, who you thought was good. Again, spoilers for Far Cry 3. And I remember his sister, who we thought was good.
Yeah.
But I don't remember
Yeah.
any drug dealer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was real memorable, wasn't he?
I guess that's the point, huh?
Exactly. That's why I'm so upset, because it's like he is literally so not memorable and not interesting. You were confused as to what the hell I was even talking about. You thought I was just
It's been a long time. To be fair, it's been a long time since I
but
played
it doesn't
that game.
matter. That's not an excuse, because good villains stay with you. Because when I mentioned Voss, guess who perked up? You did, because you
Yeah,
knew
that's
exactly
true.
who I was
That's
talking about.
absolutely true. You're not wrong there.
So, moving into 4, I was like, okay, so it's going to be Asian Voss, essentially. I'm totally okay with that because they killed him off. So that was really dumb. I hope that they learn from their, the mistakes and their missteps, and we see more of Pagan Min in this game. Spoiler alert for Far Cry 4. He basically shows up in the intro, slits a guard's throat, gives you like a monologue or something about like, I'm crazy villain man, nice to meet you. And I'm like, nice to meet you, Pagan Man, let's do some shit. And then he takes you to his castle, and then you escape from his castle, and then you essentially don't see him for most of the
You're
game.
spoiling all the Far Cries. That's true. That annoyed me too, because I'm a fan of Troy Baker. I actually like Troy Baker a lot. And when I heard he was going to be playing the villain, he's kind of like, it's weird. Around that time, he's kind of like the new Nolan North. When Nolan North became
Nathan
Drake on Uncharted, he was in everything. And most people just think, oh yeah, I hear that voice, it's Nolan North. I mean, they don't actually know the range of what Nolan North can do. He was actually the Penguin in the Batman Arkham games as well, which sounded nothing like Nolan North. But Troy Baker was kind of like the new Nolan North. He came out and he was in everything. And they were even in things together. And I don't know if you've ever watched it, but on YouTube, they actually do this thing that's kind of like our podcast, where Nolan North is kind of like the old dad dude, and he plays like old video games with Troy Baker on a couch, and they just like shoot the crap. So it was funny when I heard Troy Baker was going to be in this. I was like, oh, good. It was right when he started. I think it was after The Last of Us. So I was really into it, and then to see he was barely in the game was kind of like, what the heck? Like, you're gonna. It's like touting like a famous actor being in a movie as like, they're in the main credits, the first name, and they're like in the movie for 5 minutes. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So
Yeah, so that's essentially why I never played 5, and why I'm probably not going to play any Far Cry games, at least for like a few years, because 3 was the best one, and then I was interested to play 4, and then I never even finished 4. I got like, I want to say I got like 6 hours in, I think, maybe, roughly, to 4. I dropped it. I've never played it since, and I probably won't finish it, actually, ever. And 5 was just too boring and flaccid of a game for me to even purchase. So
well, yeah, and I agree with you. In Far Cry games, Just Cause games, I don't play those for their story. I play those for the insane moments in between the stories. But Far Cry 5 is just more Far Cry, which I didn't mind. It was fine. I actually finished Far Cry 4, but I don't, again, like, I play a lot of my major games I play for stories, like, Red Dead and Last of Us and Uncharted and stuff like that. But, Horizon, which I think is, like, my game of the generation. But this is just a, shoot around, blow stuff up, and don't worry about the story type of game, which is what I need to unwind, and there's something, after something extremely heavy like Red Dead. So it's working out for me. I'm in the mood for it, so I'm playing through it, and It is funny though. At the beginning of the game, it's funny. We spoiled Far Cry 3, we've spoiled Far Cry 4, and then that jerk who stood in front of the Game Awards and announced Far Cry New Dawn spoiled Far Cry 5 for me, and I was like, "What the heck?" I don't know if you watched that at all.
Oh yeah,
but he
yeah.
completely spoiled it just so they could announce Far Cry New Dawn. So I know how this game ends, but again, it wasn't a game I was worried about the story in. But it's scratching that itch right now, which is good, and I'm just kind of taking my time until I get to Just Cause 4, and then there really hasn't been that much that's come out this year that I'm really interested in playing, other than Control, really, and I'm just gonna kind of take it from there. So that's what I've been playing lately.
Yeah.
So.
So, well, now that we've established the absolute grand canyon of differences between us, how about I jump into like early gaming memories, like first console and stuff, and then I'll hand it off to you,
that sounds
and then
good.
we'll finish up.
That sounds good. Unless you want to talk more about Red Lobster and TGI Fridays.
Okay. Well, yeah, we might bring it around to that. Actually, I might finish with like a great restaurant story if I can think of one.
That could be the Easter egg at the end.
But I got into gaming relatively late, I guess, for some people, because some people I know, actually most of the people I know, they got into gaming when they were pretty young, like maybe like 5 or 6 or so, playing consoles that either their friend had or their parents used to own or something. I started on the Nintendo GameCube back when I was 8, turning 9, and this was back in the like that transition period between the generations, back when Nintendo was finally like, okay, we need to get rid of cartridges, I guess. Let's make little tiny discs, which was
We need to put a
interesting.
handle on our consoles.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Handle
messing
on
with
it.
you. Don't get mad at me. One of the things for those of you listening that I found out is like he told me very important things when we started doing this podcast. We're not going to mention this. We're not going to talk about this. We can talk about this all you want. But the number one thing he said was, do not ever talk trash about the GameCube. Otherwise, I will erupt in a fiery storm of hate. So, GameCube is your baby. I respect that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
It's like
you're making me feel
oh,
old.
yeah. It's like it is kind of one of those things where it's like if it's your first console, it connects with you in a way that is like so intrinsic to like the rest of like what you play and what you experience and how you experience it. It all kind of comes from that origin point. So my interest in like flight games and like dogfighting games, like Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3 was literally the first video game I ever owned and I ever played. I played it on Christmas Day. That was a few days before my birthday, because my birthday was the 31st, actually, of December. So, birthday and Christmas are actually pretty close. So I knew for my birthday I was probably going to be getting a lot more GameCube games, because I was like, oh crap, I got the GameCube for Christmas. Like, I was just like, I was drooling. I was so excited. I was like, what else am I going to get? And so I booted up Rogue Squadron, and I played it all day. We had lunch after we opened up presents, and then I did a nosedive right for that GameCube, and I played it all day. And that just completely, like, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, this is crazy. All this awesome fits on this tiny little disc.
Yeah, that's
And
I loved those tiny discs, and I don't know why. Like I remember the IBM logo on the GameCube, and I was thinking there must be some magical technology in this that allows it to have IBM technology in it and be on this tiny little disc and look this good. And I was right there with you, but I was in college at the time, so old fart here. But it's you're right. There's something about that first console, especially when it's like a holiday console, like a Christmas console or something, or whatever holiday you celebrate. It's something. There's something amazing about it, and I'll tell you my Christmas console story in a bit when you're done. But no, you're right. There is something especially about that first one that you kind of just connect with, and it either starts that itch that you'll be scratching for the rest of your life, or it goes in the opposite direction for some people. But yeah, I think most people they hit it and they hit the ground running with it, and they just fall in love with it, and it's a hobby for the rest of your life from there on out. So
because like that was the only game I got, because since they spent more money on the GameCube for my Christmas present, the only game they bought me was Rogue Squadron. But like, I didn't care. Like, I wasn't like really upset or mad at it and throw a fit. Like, I was just so enamored with Rogue Squadron, like I was just like, this is like a perfect, like this is a perfect game. Like I love everything about this game.
Yeah.
You know, looking back, I'm like, okay, there were some things they could have fixed. Like, you know, like my cynical adult mind, like, but at the time, I was just so inherently just like just involved, like with every fiber of my being in that moment on that day, you know, that Christmas day, and even after, you know, moving on to other fun games that I still love, you know, even today, like, you know, like Double Dash, you know, Mario Kart Double Dash is a freaking classic.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters Melee was a ton of fun. And even after my dad bought me an N64 and I played like awesome games like, you know, of course Super Mario 64, right? Like, come on. You know, games like Goldeneye, exactly. I was just about to bring that up because you can't have N64 without Goldeneye, you know. And
Now, did you? So you got the 64 after the GameCube?
yes, yeah, exactly.
And you went backwards, and you still thought it was fun?
Yeah, I went backwards. I still thought it was fun. What's interesting is like now I actually kind of hate Goldeneye. I actually think it's aged insanely poorly, and the only way you can actually play Goldeneye and have fun is to play it on the PC.
Gosh, that's so funny. I just got in an argument over Facebook with my old friends that I don't think they're adult gamers at all, but they had mentioned GoldenEye, and I was like, have you guys like gone back and tried to play GoldenEye recently? It's like really rough. Like rose-colored glasses are involved in this situation here because it's really rough, and they're like, no, hard disagree, hard, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I played it like a week ago, and it was pretty bad. So,
well, here's the thing though, like if N64 version of GoldenEye, right? Like little mini tangent here, but like N64 GoldenEye, 5 out of 10 at the most, but like PC GoldenEye running with the mouse and keyboard at 60 frames a second, because yeah, you can do that. It's
really
amazing. 10 out of 10. It legitimately is one of the best shooters ever made. Like on the PC, running at like with like current gen hardware, like 60 frames. Oh, it's so good. It's the controls are fluid as hell. The responsiveness is amazing. The delay is like non-existent. Like everything about it is just freaking awesome. So if your friends were talking about GoldenEye on the PC,
they were not.
I would have
they
to take their side. Okay, then they're absolutely fucking wrong. Then yeah, the N64
they probably
terrible.
have no idea that you can even play it on a PC like me until 5 seconds ago. So, but I will tell you, when GoldenEye came out on 64, and I had to sweet talk my grandfather into buying the $90 cartridge from Walmart for me to play, it was a 10 out of 10 to 9-year-old Joe. So it was a 10 out of 10 back then, not so much anymore. But it's funny because when I played it a couple months ago, it was with my best friend's son, who was like 5 years old, and N64 is new to him. He owns no other console than the N64 he found in their attic that used to belong to their dad. And to him, GoldenEye is just as cool as it was for us back in the day. So it's a 10 out of 10 for him too. So so they had to get some kind of HDMI adapter or something like that. So it's all within context, but it's funny because when you're talking about the GameCube, I wanted to mention this a second ago, and I know I'm kind of jumping into your story, but you were probably ignorant to it at the time, but the GameCube, when you got it, I think was the first Nintendo console ever that did not include a pack-in? No, 64 did not include a pack-in. Never mind.
No,
I take that back.
64 didn't include a pack-in.
I was thinking 64 came with Mario 64.
No, the thing that N64 did is they did limited edition consoles like it was going out of fucking style. Like literally, like they were just like, okay, guys, this is like the meeting at Nintendo headquarters. Okay, what are we gonna do? And they were like, okay, better games? No. Easier like things to program because we're basically etching them into stone tablets. Maybe we should move away from cartridges. No. What is that? Miyamoto or whatever your name is. You got your hand raised? What is it? Colored consoles. Hey, now come over here. Did you see that guy? That guy runs the company now. Colored consoles.
He's going places.
And then they just shout out every color known to man. Like, no, I'm not joking. This is not a meme.
Transparent purple.
No, like, no. That's one of the freaking colors. It was transparent freaking purple.
I know.
Like, seriously, like, anybody who doesn't believe me, Google that shit. Like, it is, like, every color you can imagine. They were just like, dude, do it. Come on. Have we done red yet? Hey, Hey, have we done red? No, sir, we haven't done red yet. Start making fucking red consoles right now, or your job is over. You're fired. 5 p.m.
So what I hate about the guy in that meeting that they listened to is some jackass in the background is like, how about a brand new controller that looks like a Trident, and for some reason we put the stick in the middle. so that when people still bust out their N64s in 20 years, they can't play them to save their life because the stick doesn't work anymore. So terrible controller.
At the time, the N64 was a lot of fun. At the time, the N64 was fun. Disclaimer: fun console, some good games. Yeah, we don't want to pick on it too much, but seriously, any game that you can play on the N64 that's on the PC is just going to be objectively the superior version. Yeah. So
That's interesting. I didn't know that culture existed.
Oh yeah.
That you can.
Oh yeah.
Do that.
There are plenty of great games you emulate on PC for N64. But
so you got a GameCube.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. And then moved back to N64.
That was your go-to.
And then after I jumped back to
GameCube
for a little while, I basically went to PC, and that was kind of, I mean, I'm primarily a PC gamer today, and it really did start with those early RTS games, Age of Empires 1, Age of Empires 2, Star Wars Galactic Battleground Saga, and the Clone Wars expansion, and just playing those games, and I was like, okay, this is awesome, because it's not just me fighting the bad guys, I get to decide who the bad guys are. I'm talking about skirmish mode. Like, I get to decide who the bad guys are, I get to decide who I am, I get to pick our colors, and I get to pick the map, and I get to pick, like, the unit numbers that we can have. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I love this. Like, PC is where it's at. And so
can I ask you a seemingly random question?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you like the game of chess?
Yes, I do. Chess is awesome.
Okay, I've never heard anybody talk about this on a podcast before. I have this theory that people who learn chess as a younger child and who inertly just fall in love with chess and get chess and it clicks with them, I think there is a connection between chess and people who enjoy and love playing games like RPGs and like especially turn-based RPGs and strategy games, RTSs, because I hate chess and I can't stand those games. And when you think about it in its purest form, a turn-based
No, I mean,
RPG
honestly,
chess.
that I don't know. Like, you can't, like, you'd have to ask a lot more people. But in terms of me, that theory does actually hold true because I was introduced to chess at a very young age. Mm-hmm. Even before I started playing video games, I learned how to play chess. I was dog shit at it. Obviously, I was like 6 years old, but but I did really like chess a lot. I actually like checkers a lot as well.
So you weren't Bobby Fischer, is what you're saying?
No, I was not. Oh God, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Bobby Fischer. Yeah, no. But
well, that's interesting. I'd be very interested to hear from our audience because maybe that can be our first poll we put out.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Facebook
Like,
page.
did you
But
play chess?
I've always had that theory.
Yeah, I
always had that theory that if you love chess, because my dad taught me chess, and not only did I have zero interest in it, but I was also terrible at it, like you said. And from that day, it's, you know, I consider myself a very open and balanced person, and I try these games, especially when I get them for free or something on PlayStation Plus. I will try a Final Fantasy game, or I will try, you know, a Zelda game, or you know, Chrono Trigger or something like that. You know, I'll get maybe part way into some of them, but I'll never stick with them because they can't hold my interest. I think they're boring, and I don't understand why someone would want to sit there and take turns firing a weapon or firing a magical spell at someone as opposed to just doing it in real time. And I know there are like crossover games. I think Kingdom Hearts is one of those games. It's like an action RPG, and I have no problem with that, but I've tried playing, like this year I really, really gave it a shot, Octopath Traveler. I tried playing that. My wife even tried playing that because she's big. We're both into D&D, but she's like a dungeon master and everything. I said, maybe you should try this. But I could not do it. I thought the art style was awesome. The story was amazing. The sound design and the music was incredible, but just the gameplay I couldn't stand it.
See, I thought the story was absolute garbage. So I actually really don't like Octopath Traveler. That's a hot take. I'm not going to go into it, but I didn't like
I
it.
thought it was
Yeah.
quaint. I thought it was quaint. It wasn't like, blow me out of the water, but oh, it's like, like a fairy tale kind of thing. But
Yeah, I didn't like it. The reason I don't think that story works in RPGs anymore because like we progressed so much since then. Like that story just isn't gonna fly anymore. I mean, I guess it will fly for some people, and they'll like you said they'll probably find it quaint like you did, and they'll probably be like, oh, this is fun. But for me, I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, like if I'm going into RPG and it like isn't telling it like a decent story, like I'm not gonna be invested at all. So. But anyway, so okay, right? So let's talk about you. First console, first game you played. Let's get a little.
My turn?
Yeah, it's your
Okay.
turn.
Well, I'm obviously older. But the first what is there, about 10 years of difference between the two of us? Is that what
Roughly,
we've
yeah,
determined? Okay.
yeah, roughly.
So my first time I think I ever remember playing a video game was at my neighbor's house. She was one of those turds that got everything because their parents had tons of money and they just were trying to win her over or whatever, and she had an Atari 2600, and I remembered playing this little game with ostriches in it and men on the ostriches, and it was Joust, and I couldn't understand what was going on, but it was really cool because this thing that I usually only saw in arcades was on this girl's TV now. So that was my first experience that I remember with actually playing a video game. If I go back early enough. So obviously I'm an old fart, but one of the big things that I lived through was that I think probably differs from you was the arcade era, and I'm talking about the golden age of the arcade. So I kind of cut my teeth on video games in the arcade, and if I ever got more than $1 worth of quarters in my hand from my mother or from my grandmother, it was like the best day ever. Especially when a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game came out. So like I was growing up in the arcade. I understood stuff like Pac-Man and how to get better on that, and you stick your quarters up on the screen, and that's kind of how you hold your place in line. And did you get that experience at all growing up, or I mean that you completely skipped over that, or
Yeah,
not?
I would say I skipped over a fair amount of it. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah,
that
not a
was
lot of
kind of like
arcade
my
stuff,
heyday.
so.
So that was my heyday, and I think just seeing that and then realizing, with the invent of, Mario, and I was completely oblivious to the video game crash. I was born in the midst of the video game crash. And I don't think I was really into gaming or old enough to appreciate or enjoy or even understand gaming until around the time the NES came out, and NES was my first real console. And my mom, God bless her soul, she never, she's still alive. I'm talking like she's dead. She's still alive, but she never understood. I don't think she ever really fully understood video games. But she always like supported me, right? And she wanted me to have balanced time. Like, you play 2 hours of video games this weekend, but you go outside and you play the rest of the time, which as an adult I totally appreciate, especially nowadays with these young kids that are constantly just in their phones. Now I'm really sounding old. Okay, moving on. So, so what I did was I got my first Nintendo Entertainment System, and it came with the pack end of Mario and Duck Hunt. And I think I might have had the trackpad. I'm not sure if have you ever seen this thing, the track and field?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, where you just like jump on it and like move your legs really fast. It was like the Wii before there was a Wii. So so I think I had that version, and I loved it. It was just great. I got to play so many games when we had rental stores back then. I usually would get to go once a weekend and rent a game, and I'd have it for 3 days. So you get to keep it for the weekend, and that's like some of my best memories. And from there, I kind of went from the NES to kind of all the other consoles. I traded up from there. So before GameStop was even a thing, I would take my NES into a pawn shop, which was big around the military town that I grew up in. And I would trade in my NES and give whatever money I had to make up the difference from like Christmases and stuff to get that Sega Genesis, because I thought Sega Genesis was like the next big thing. 16 bits, man. What is this? It's like those colors are popping off the screen, and this blue hedgehog, he's going to blow my mind. So I had a Sega Genesis for a while there. And unfortunately, my parents got divorced. But the one amazing thing that happened in the midst of that any I think divorced child can talk about is the unspoken competition between parents. I think that goes on during birthdays and Christmas to kind of outdo one another, especially when that divorce is fresh and to a 6-year old little boy. So like my dad, heard about the Nintendo, and so he tried to get me a Super Nintendo when that came out. And so I, at one point in time, I had a Super Nintendo at my dad's, and I had a Sega Genesis at my mom's. So I was kind of getting the best of both worlds. And heard about the Nintendo, and so he tried to get me a Super Nintendo when that came out. And so I, at one point in time, I had a Super Nintendo at my dad's, and I had a Sega Genesis at my mom's. So I was kind of getting the best of both worlds. And I think I still have my Super Nintendo lying around somewhere, to be honest with you. So then I traded up from there to. I didn't actually trade up to this one. This was. I'm going to tell you this story because this is my holiday console memory. This was like your GameCube thing. So the year the Nintendo 64 came out, I talked about it nonstop. I made it very clear that this was the only thing I wanted for Christmas. And as my mom awesomely did when I was a kid, she very convincingly played like she not only didn't want me to have one, but didn't understand why I wanted one and had no interest in getting me one. And unbeknownst to me, she had bought one. I don't know how she came across one because they were hard to come by that holiday season. I mean, they were. I don't know if you probably weren't old enough to remember this, but they were flying off of shelves from what I remember, and they were actually really hard to find if I'm remembering correctly. So she got one and was smart enough to hide it at the neighbor's house.
Oh, that is smart.
For the entirety of the holidays. Yeah, so it was really smart on her part. Because, I was one of those little turds that searched the house and looked for things. Yeah, so she went and got it on Christmas Eve after I fell asleep from the neighbors. And it was already wrapped. And the next morning, I woke up on Christmas morning, and she had everything wrapped under the tree. And I tore open everything. Because, she was one of the ones that would put a box inside of a box inside of a box.
Oh, that's dirty.
There's my real present. She was one of those people, and I loved that. As much as I say I hated it, I loved it, and I still do it to people nowadays. So she would be one to do that. So I didn't know if that Nintendo was under, is my N64 under this tree or not. She went out of her way, and this is one of my proudest moments of her as a parent. She went out of her way that Christmas to torture me by getting me nothing but clothes and socks and underwear. And that's all that was underneath the Christmas tree that year. And I remember she looked at me after I opened everything. I mean, not a Transformer or a G.I. Joe in sight, nothing. It was all underwear and socks and like sweaters. And so she looked at me and she's like, well, did you have a good Christmas? Was it good? Did you have fun? And being the nice little boy that I was like, yeah, it was great, Mom. Thanks. And at the last second, she was like, oh, look at that. What's that over there? And there was like a little slip of paper underneath our living room lamp. And of course it said, your Christmas is not over yet. Go check the silverware drawer in the kitchen. And, there was another note in there that led me on another note. And it was like a scavenger hunt for the next 20 minutes until it finally led me to the dresser drawer in their bedroom, somewhere where I was not allowed to go in my parents' bedroom for some reason. I don't know why. That was like off limits. I could never go in there. So it's one of the places I would have never looked. And as soon as I opened that dresser, they'd like cleared out the dresser. There was no clothes in there. And this thing was only a wrapped present sitting in there. And as soon as I saw that thing, I stared at it through a glass in Walmart for hours on end. So I knew the exact dimensions of the N64 box as an 8-year-old. And as soon as I saw that thing, I was like, that's an N64. And I ripped that thing open. And man, that was probably my best gaming holiday memory that I can think of, because even my mom back then, who knew nothing about gaming, didn't know enough to, what game to purchase for me, because like I said, it did not come with a pack-in. So she went to Blockbuster Video. Yes, that's how old I am. She went to Blockbuster Video and asked the guy there, I'm getting my son a Nintendo 64. What games should I have for him? And he said Mario 64 and Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. So she rented those two games for me to have on Christmas morning, and they really couldn't have been two better games for her to get for me over the holiday break. And I think I re-rented them like 3 times. But that was my favorite gaming memory. I think my GameCube is my N64. But from there, I kind of evolved with time. I played video games here and there as I got older, and I discovered, like a social life and friends and girls and parties and stuff like that. I got out of it a little bit, and then when I got older enough to have a real job, I promised myself, okay, when I get my first job, I had every console. I just didn't play it as much as I play now. I had PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and then I strictly became a PlayStation gamer. But when I got my first real job, I was like, the first real salary job I have, the first, paycheck I get, I'm going to make sure everything's paid off, apartment and everything. And I'm going to go buy myself a flat screen TV and a PlayStation 3. And this was after they weren't $600 anymore. So, I got a PlayStation 3. I got the flat screen TV. 40-inch flat screen Samsung cost over $2,000 at the time. Yeah, it was like a $2,500 purchase. That was my first credit card. Was a Best Buy gift card or credit card. But I got that, and this was kind of like what I consider my gaming renaissance. I didn't really know too much about gaming. I hadn't started listening to podcasts or delved that deep into the industry on the internet at that time, but I just said I wanted a PlayStation 3. I bought Resistance Fall of Man right out the gate.
Remaster cool. Win. Sorry,
but
continue.
Are you down for that? Like, are you one of the remaster Resistance people?
Yes, like seriously. That's like one of the franchises that defined that console. Like, why the hell have you not remastered those three? Anyway, sorry. No, please continue.
No, it's okay. No, no. Feel free to interject and shut me up. I can talk for a long time. No, I love Insomniac, and that was kind of like one of their first things out of the gate. I don't think Resistance is, in my opinion, their best franchise. I think that either goes to Ratchet and Clank, and honestly, Sunset Overdrive was amazing. I love Sunset Overdrive.
Ratchet and Clank's good shit.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank is amazing, and it actually was my first. This is another story I'll have to tell you at a different time. How my wife became a gamer. That was her first video game, like real video game ever. But
maybe we'll have her on to tell it.
What's that?
Maybe we'll have her on to tell it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll have to get her on when we talk about VR and stuff, because she'll have plenty to say about that. But yeah, we definitely have to have her talk about her, because that's a hilarious story.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun.
But my gaming renaissance, for me, I think really started when I was going into a GameStop, and I had kind of like run out of games to play on my brand new PlayStation 3. I had done a few downloads, and I did Resistance and stuff like that, but I was kind of floundering where to go from there. And I had picked up this game at a GameStop that I heard about being on Xbox, and I had heard about it being really good. But it was the year that BioShock came out for PlayStation 3. And it had an awesome cover. I still have the case to this day. It had this awesome cover to it and looked like a collector's thing, and I'm all about collecting like really cool cases, and I'm a big Steelbook guy, so I'm like, all right, this game, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I'll get it and I'll try it out. I got into this game and I started playing this thing, and my perspective on video games just completely changed.
Yeah.
I told you, my love of games stemmed from my love of movies. I think that was the moment. I think that's the moment when I realized that, holy crap, there are video games out there that the stories are more engrossing, the atmospheres are more in-depth, the moment-to-moment activity is more entertaining than any movie I've seen of recent memory. And BioShock, to this day, I think is one of my favorite pieces of media, period. I think I told you before that when I started playing the Uncharted games, I think that was my next big aha moment where, I went to go see Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in the theater, and then I played the newest Uncharted game, and I thought to myself, gosh, this Indiana Jones video game clone has a better story in Uncharted 2 than the most recent Indiana Jones movie. That blew my mind. And I think that's kind of where my renaissance kicked in, and I realized that kind of video games. I wish we had a different name. I know many people have had this conversation. I wish we had a different name for them than video games. But that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, this is my new thing. This is my renaissance into gaming, and it's kind of my go-to form of entertainment now. And It's a totally different level, and it kind of takes, in my opinion, I think that's when I started to realize it takes the best of every form of media that you can find, movies, TV, books, and puts you in the middle of it. And as we go down the road of VR and stuff, I think we're only going to find that we're being even more put in the middle of that story. And that's kind of when it all kicked off for me. And now I'm either listening to a podcast about gaming, or I'm reading about it, or I'm playing one, whenever I can. Not to a point of obsession, or like my wife doesn't know me, but still, it's definitely like my main hobby, and I think I appreciate it as an art form more than I think any other art form out right now. So
You know what? I think I think that's a good place to end it. Actually, I think that's
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a good place to end it.
yeah, that sounds good to me. I got to get back to trying to earn those Astrobot and Batman trophies. So
I gotta get back into trophy hunting. Honestly, I haven't done it in a while. Anyway, well, thank you everybody for listening to episode 1 of the Backlogged Gamer podcast. I hope you all enjoyed. Below, there's a link to our Facebook page as well as an email address that we have set up that you can send general thoughts, questions, anything about gaming, past or present, that you might like us to discuss on the show. Nothing is really off topic as long as it's related to gaming. We'll take a look at it. Anyway, so I really do hope you all enjoyed this and the podcast finds you well. Thanks. Bye.
see you guys later.